Hello family, welcome back to Luxurious Stories, the home of hidden empires and love that rises from the ashes. Before we dive in, take a moment to like, subscribe, and join our growing family of story lovers. Tonight's story is rich, emotional, and dangerously unpredictable. Let's begin. Mara Benson arrived in the city at sunrise with one suitcase. She wore plain clothes and kept her head low. No one recognized her or paid attention. That was exactly what she wanted. She rented a small apartment in an old building downtown. The walls were thin and the floors creaked. Traffic noise filled the room at night. The simplicity felt strange but necessary. Mara had lived her entire life surrounded by power. Wealth had brought her control but never peace. Every relationship felt transactional and hollow. Love always came with expectations. She chose to hide her true identity completely. To the world, she was just an ordinary consultant. Her real position remained locked behind silence. Only a few trusted people knew the truth. Her company continued to grow without her presence. Executives believed she was on a private retreat. Decisions were handled remotely and discreetly. No one suspected her experiment. That night, Mara stood by her window and breathed deeply. She promised herself patience and honesty. If love found her, it would be real. This was her new beginning. Solomon Kingsley woke before his alarm every morning. His apartment was tidy but empty of warmth. He measured his days by progress and comparison. Restlessness followed him everywhere. He worked at a mid-level consulting firm with fierce competition. Promotions were rare and favor was political. Solomon believed talent alone should elevate him. Reality constantly disagreed. His upbringing had been strict and unforgiving. Failure was mocked and success was demanded. He learned early to chase admiration relentlessly. Poverty frightened him more than loneliness. Solomon dressed sharply even when money was tight. Appearances mattered deeply to him. He believed image opened doors before merit could. Every reflection reminded him of what he lacked. He dreamed of wealth, influence, and recognition. Not comfort, but validation drove him. He wanted rooms to quiet when he entered. He wanted respect without explanation. That hunger shaped every decision he made. It sharpened his ambition and dulled his empathy. He saw life as a ladder to climb. Anyone slow became a weight. Mara met Solomon on a rainy afternoon at a neighborhood cafe. The place was crowded and short-staffed. She offered him the last empty seat without hesitation. A simple courtesy opened a conversation. They spoke about trivial things at first. Work frustrations and city traffic filled the silence. Solomon found her calm refreshing. Mara noticed his intensity immediately. He was drawn to her lack of pretense. She listened without interrupting or impressing. There was no flirtation, only ease. That unsettled him in a way he couldn't explain. Mara appreciated his ambition despite its sharp edges. He spoke with urgency about his future. His honesty felt unpolished but real. That authenticity intrigued her. They met again days later by coincidence. Then again by intention. Familiarity grew through shared routines. Neither acknowledged the pull directly. When they finally exchanged numbers, it felt inevitable. Neither mentioned wealth or status. There were no hidden expectations yet. Something quiet had begun. Their meetings became part of a gentle routine. Morning coffee turned into evening walks. Conversation flowed without effort or performance. Time passed unnoticed between them. Mara enjoyed the simplicity of shared moments. Solomon spoke freely about his goals and fears. He liked how she never judged him. Her presence felt grounding. Solomon admired her discipline and calm. She never complained or asked for more. That restraint felt rare and admirable. It also made him comfortable. They cooked together in her small kitchen. Mistakes were laughed off easily. Silence never felt awkward between them. Comfort settled in naturally. Friends noticed a change in Solomon. He smiled more and rushed less. Ambition softened around her presence. He felt understood without being analyzed. Neither rushed to define the relationship. They allowed it to grow on its own. Trust formed quietly through consistency. Love crept in unnoticed. Solomon proposed on an ordinary evening without spectacle. There was no ring at first, only certainty in his voice. Mara accepted after a long pause. She believed sincerity mattered more than display. They married quietly at a small registry office. No guests filled the room, only witnesses required by law. Mara wore a simple dress she already owned. Solomon felt proud yet uneasy. Mara chose not to reveal her true identity. She wanted to remain loved for who she appeared to be. Wealth had ruined too many connections before. Silence felt safer than truth. Their home reflected simplicity and restraint. Solomon paid most bills and rarely complained. Still, a quiet embarrassment took root inside him. He hated how little they seemed to have. Mara noticed a subtle shift in his tone. His smiles became measured, his patience thinner. She observed without confrontation or accusation. She was still studying love. Marriage settled into routine rather than warmth. Solomon's ambition grew louder each day. Mara remained steady and observant. Something fragile was beginning to strain. Solomon's career frustrations intensified as months passed. Promotions went to louder names and better connections. He returned home tense and distracted most evenings. Mara felt the distance but said little. He began comparing their life to others openly. Casual remarks turned into pointed observations. He spoke of better homes and better circles. Mara listened without defense or explanation. Solomon's embarrassment slowly hardened into resentment. He hated how Mara never pushed for more. Her contentment felt like stagnation to him. He mistook patience for weakness. Mara sensed his shame more than his anger. She noticed how he avoided introducing her to colleagues. Invitations were declined without discussion. The silence between them grew heavier. Their conversations became practical and brief. Love was no longer discussed aloud. Solomon focused on ambition while Mara focused on clarity. Each walked a different emotional path. The marriage remained intact in appearance only. Beneath it, trust thinned quietly. Solomon no longer looked at Mara with pride. He looked at her like a limitation. Annabelle Jonathan entered Solomon's life through a professional mixer. She was confident, polished, and effortlessly commanding attention. Her laughter carried across rooms. Solomon noticed immediately. She worked in corporate development and spoke the language of influence. Connections followed her naturally. Solomon felt seen in her presence. She admired his ambition openly. Annabelle dressed with intention and lived loudly. She spoke about travel, luxury, and powerful people. Everything Solomon wanted reflected back at him. Her world felt like an invitation. Their conversation stretched beyond work quickly. Compliments became personal and charged. Boundaries blurred without resistance. Solomon never mentioned his wife. Annabelle assumed he was unattached. Solomon allowed that assumption to breathe. The omission felt easier than truth. Desire silenced conscience. What began as admiration grew into temptation. Solomon felt elevated beside her. Shame followed closely behind. He chose excitement over honesty. Solomon began living carefully divided days. Work hours extended longer than necessary. Phone calls were taken in private. Excuses became routine and rehearsed. Annabelle enjoyed his attention without restraint. She introduced him to upscale lounges and influential circles. Solomon felt important beside her. His confidence grew artificially. At home, Mara noticed his absences immediately. Dinners went cold more often than not. Conversations ended before they began. She sensed another presence without proof. Solomon justified his actions internally. He told himself ambition required sacrifice. Guilt was framed as temporary discomfort. Desire drowned out reason. Annabelle pushed for more visibility together. She wanted him beside her publicly. Solomon felt torn but thrilled. Secrecy intensified the connection. Mara watched the changes with quiet awareness. She asked no questions and made no accusations. Observation was her strength. Truth, she knew, always surfaced. Mara's days grew more structured and intentional. She began making discreet calls from private locations. Her calm never wavered, but her focus sharpened. Important decisions were being set in motion. She monitored Solomon's company quietly through public channels. Patterns emerged that concerned her deeply. Contracts shifted and alliances formed suspiciously fast. She recognized ambition without integrity. Mara increased her involvement behind the scenes. Board members received precise instructions without her name attached. Strategic moves unfolded smoothly and invisibly. Her authority remained unquestioned where it mattered. At home, Solomon spoke less and planned more. He mentioned opportunities without details. Mara listened with attentive neutrality. She was measuring distance, not reacting to it. Annabelle encouraged Solomon's confidence aggressively. She painted futures filled with prestige and access. Solomon leaned into the fantasy willingly. Reality felt dull in comparison. Mara understood the crossroads forming clearly. Love and truth were drifting apart. She prepared without confrontation. Some lessons required exposure to be learned. Solomon received the invitation during a tense afternoon meeting. The envelope was sleek and exclusive. It promised access to elite investors and executives. His heart raced with validation. The event was formal and highly selective. Attendance signaled status and relevance. Solomon saw it as a turning point. He imagined doors finally opening. He glanced at Mara while rereading the details. Embarrassment surfaced immediately. He could not picture her beside him there. Annabelle came to mind without effort. She fit the image perfectly. Glamorous, confident, and impressive. The decision formed quietly. That evening, Solomon mentioned the event casually. He avoided meeting Mara's eyes. He said attendance was limited. Mara nodded without protest or curiosity. Her silence felt heavier than argument. The path forward was now chosen. The business event unfolded in a glass-walled hotel overlooking the city skyline. Crystal lights reflected off polished marble floors. Conversations hummed with power and money. Solomon arrived with Annabelle on his arm. Annabelle drew attention effortlessly as they entered. Her dress was elegant and commanding. Solomon felt important beside her. He introduced himself boldly and selectively. When colleagues asked about his wife, Solomon laughed lightly. He dismissed Mara as insignificant and unsuitable. His words were casual but cruel. Annabelle smiled, unaware of the weight behind them. Mara arrived moments later through a private entrance. She wore a tailored outfit that radiated quiet authority. Security greeted her with respect. Heads began to turn. Solomon did not recognize her at first. She moved calmly through the room. Conversations paused as executives followed her steps. Anticipation thickened the air. The announcement followed without ceremony. Mara Benson was introduced as the CEO everyone awaited. Silence crashed over the room. Solomon's world shattered in a single breath. The room remained frozen as Mara stood at the center. Her presence commanded attention without effort. Executives straightened instinctively. Respect replaced chatter instantly. Solomon felt the blood drain from his face. Annabelle's grip on his arm loosened. Confusion turned into dread. Every word he had spoken replayed loudly in his mind. Mara's eyes met Solomon's briefly. There was no anger in them. Only clarity and distance. That calm hurt more than rage ever could. Annabelle finally understood the shift in the room. Whispers spread rapidly around her. Faces turned toward Solomon with judgment. The illusion collapsed completely. Mara began discussing business calmly. Her voice was steady and authoritative. She did not acknowledge Solomon publicly. The omission was deliberate. Solomon stood unmoving as conversations resumed. He had never felt smaller. Shame settled heavy and absolute. The night continued without him. News of the event spread through professional circles quickly. Solomon's name followed the story closely. His credibility suffered immediate damage. People distanced themselves without explanation. Annabelle confronted him the next morning. Her tone was sharp and calculating. She demanded honesty he could no longer avoid. The truth stripped away her admiration. She accused him of deception and weakness. Status had drawn her in, not affection. Once power vanished, interest followed. She walked away without hesitation. Solomon returned home in silence. Mara was calm and composed. The apartment felt colder than ever. He tried to speak but found no words. Mara listened briefly when he attempted explanation. She neither interrupted nor argued. Her decision was already made. Trust could not be repaired. Solomon realized he had lost everything at once. Reputation, marriage, and illusion collapsed together. There was no one left to blame. Only consequences remained. Annabelle ended things decisively and without emotion. She returned his belongings neatly arranged. Her eyes held disappointment, not sadness. Ambition had no room for scandal. She removed him from her professional circles immediately. Invitations stopped arriving. Messages went unanswered without explanation. Solomon felt erased overnight. Annabelle warned him never to contact her again. She valued image above all else. Being associated with his downfall threatened her ascent. She chose distance without regret. Solomon watched her leave with nothing to say. He had imagined she cared deeply. The truth was painfully clear now. He had been convenient, not loved. Her absence exposed the emptiness he had ignored. The glamour vanished quickly. Silence replaced excitement. Reality settled heavily. Solomon stood alone with his choices. No validation remained to shield him. Consequences unfolded without mercy. The fall had fully begun. Mara requested a divorce without hostility or delay. Her voice was calm and resolved. She outlined terms that were fair and final. Emotion did not cloud her judgment. Solomon tried to argue for forgiveness. He spoke of pressure and ambition. His words sounded hollow even to himself. Mara listened without interruption. She explained that love required respect. Shame had replaced partnership long ago. Betrayal only revealed what already existed. Her decision did not waver. Legal steps moved swiftly and quietly. There were no public confrontations. Mara protected her privacy carefully. Dignity guided every action. Solomon signed the papers with shaking hands. The reality of separation settled in. He had underestimated her strength. He now faced life alone. Mara walked away without bitterness. Closure mattered more than revenge. She reclaimed herself fully. Consequences were complete. Solomon's professional life deteriorated rapidly. Former allies avoided association. His name carried discomfort. Opportunities vanished silently. He struggled to maintain confidence publicly. Rejection followed him persistently. Each closed door echoed louder. Pride became a burden. Financial pressure mounted steadily. Expenses he once ignored became urgent. Appearances no longer impressed anyone. Reality demanded humility. Friends distanced themselves cautiously. Sympathy felt awkward and limited. Solomon faced isolation completely. Loneliness forced reflection. He questioned every decision he had made. Regret lingered without relief. Ambition had blinded him. Truth arrived too late. The fall stripped him bare. Nothing cushioned the descent. He learned painfully. Growth began unwillingly. Mara stepped fully into her public role. Confidence followed naturally. Respect came without effort. Leadership suited her openly. She restructured her company decisively. Integrity guided every decision. Employees responded with loyalty. Results followed swiftly. Mara rebuilt her personal life intentionally. She cultivated peace and balance. Trust began with herself. Healing felt steady. Her presence commanded rooms now. She spoke with clarity and purpose. Authority rested comfortably on her shoulders. Doubt no longer lingered. She did not celebrate Solomon's fall. Indifference replaced anger. Lessons had been learned. Closure felt complete. Mara embraced her truth openly. Disguise was no longer needed. Strength defined her future. New paths opened. Solomon encountered Mara unexpectedly at a corporate meeting. He froze instantly. She acknowledged him politely. Distance remained firm. He attempted conversation afterward. His tone was apologetic and subdued. Mara listened briefly. Boundaries stayed intact. Solomon expressed regret sincerely. He admitted failure without excuses. The honesty was overdue. Mara recognized growth but remained detached. She wished him well calmly. There was no invitation back. The past stayed closed. Respect replaced resentment. Solomon accepted the finality quietly. He understood what was lost. Gratitude replaced bitterness. Acceptance followed slowly. They parted without drama. The encounter ended cleanly. Each walked separate paths. Lessons remained. Solomon began rebuilding modestly. He focused on skill over image. Patience replaced urgency. Growth became internal. He learned humility through consistency. Small successes felt meaningful. Validation came quietly. Pride softened into gratitude. Relationships shifted toward honesty. He avoided shortcuts and appearances. Integrity guided his choices. Life felt slower but real. Mara expanded her influence globally. Her leadership inspired confidence. She trusted wisely now. Love was no longer rushed. She found fulfillment in balance. Power and peace coexisted. Her identity felt complete. Purpose guided her steps. Both accepted their truths fully. Pain transformed into clarity. Growth emerged naturally. Acceptance settled deeply. Mara stood at the height of her success confidently. Her journey felt earned. Strength defined her presence. Peace anchored her life. She opened herself to possibility again. Not desperation, but readiness guided her. Love would come differently now. Truth would lead. Solomon moved forward with humility. He carried lessons carefully. Ambition no longer ruled him. Balance reshaped his path. Their lives no longer intersected. Each story continued separately. Closure felt complete. Growth endured. The city moved on quietly. Power shifted naturally. Consequences settled firmly. Lessons remained lasting. New beginnings unfolded steadily. Truth had prevailed. Identity was reclaimed. The story closed with clarity. I'm glad you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to follow, share, and comment your thought about the story. See you in the next story.